Just, when the news gets that out, well, golly jeepers, we have no idea who might have been shooting up that mosque. Yeah, we do. And the number one story trending this hour today in the USA. And we're on Facebook Live, too, aren't we? On Trending Today USA with Rusty Humphries. Check that out. Are we also on Conservative Tribune? Oh, nice. How y'all doing? Good to see you. We could see more protests at the nation's airports today. Demonstrators for days now have been voicing their opposition to President Trump's executive order on banning travelers from 7 countries from entering the United States. I didn't see anybody at SeaTac Airport, although, again, I've seen videos of it. I didn't see anybody. Michele Bachmann is here, former congresswoman, former presidential candidate. She's from Minnesota. How you doing, Congresswoman Bachmann? Welcome back to Trending Today USA. How you doing?
Good morning, Rusty. I'm great. Great to be on with you today.
I appreciate you being here on conservativetribune.com as well. Now, let's talk about the truth here, because all I want is the truth. And I know that you focus on these issues because you've been on these committees where you know what's really going on. First of all, did Donald Trump ban Muslims from 7 countries yesterday or the day before?
No.
He didn't? What are you talking about? I saw it on TV. I saw actors up in arms on television. I'm seeing people protesting in the streets. Donald Trump hates Muslims. America hates Muslims, and we have to fight together to bring this Islamophobia and put it away. That's what I'm hearing.
What Donald Trump did was try to rectify one of the most dangerous programs Barack Obama had ever allowed to continue in the United States, and that is allowing people from terror-based countries to come freely into our country without any serious form of vetting. And it's not without consequences. Just in the last 3 years, just think back. We've had knife attacks here in my home state in the Mall of America, in a mall in Minnesota,
right,
at Ohio State University, in Orlando nightclub, Chattanooga, at the Navy Recruitment Center, the pipe bombing in Manhattan, San Bernardino. These were all attacks by migrants from terror-inducing countries. They came in because they didn't have the proper vetting. What are we supposed to do? Continue to allow these attacks to happen? You have to start somewhere, and thank God we have a common-sense President Donald Trump who takes these attacks seriously and is saying we are now going to set up a procedure where people don't come into this country who shouldn't be in this country.
Right. Of course, in Canada, there was a problem yesterday. Now, I guess it has not yet been confirmed, so I will say that, and I will back off a little bit. But from everything I've seen, these 2 Muslim guys went and shot up a mosque in Quebec. Do you know any information about that?
Just what I've read is that the individuals who did the shooting were shouting "Allahu Akbar," and it appears that
you know what? I probably should back off then.
For Muslim.
I should probably back off then. It's probably Orthodox Jews. So I'm glad you cleared that up for me.
But again, that is the issue. And remember, these protests that are happening across the United States are being led by CARE, the Council on Arab-Islamic Relations. CARE is a known Muslim Brotherhood front group. They were designated that by a federal court. CARE is designated as a terrorist organization. The Muslim Brotherhood, I should say, is designated as a terrorist organization in Egypt, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates. We should be declaring the Muslim Brotherhood a foreign terrorist organization here in the United States. And again, CARE is the front group for the Muslim Brotherhood, and they are the ones that are at the forefront of establishing these protests in airports. Why? Because Muhammad's method of conquering lands for Islam was through migration. And the migration patterns into Europe, the migration patterns into America are all following the pattern that Muhammad had laid down historically. And that's what Muslims have continued to follow, those who follow Muhammad over the years.
This is the first time I've ever heard that, Congresswoman Bachmann. Where that's not in the media at all. That this is something that you believe was a plan
Well,
of
the media
Muhammad back in
doesn't.
the day.
Well, this is just a part of Muslim history under Muhammad. That Muhammad's method of conquering from Mecca to Medina was through the example of migration, sending Muslims into a new city and then conquering from that point on. Because uh, Islam believes in a perpetual state of war until a land is conquered for Islam. This is not some secret. This is a part of Islamic um, history. If you read the Quran or the Hadith,
Mm-hmm.
this is what is expected of Muslims who believe in fundamentalist Islam.
And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about either. They'll only talk about the Quran, but they won't talk about the history of Al-Tabari or the Hadith, where there's a lot more in that, isn't there?
Yes, there is, and the Quran is very clear in what is expected of Muslims. And again, fundamentalist Muslims who strictly follow the words of Muhammad believe that they will be faithful Muslims. And also in the Quran, the only Muslims who can know for sure that they are going to an afterlife, to a paradise, is if they die in the way as martyrs in the way of advancing jihad.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only way they have of being assured of going to paradise under their belief system. And that's why under President Obama, when he conducted a purge through the various FBI training manuals and military training manuals, what he was trying to do is purge knowledge of our people who are dedicated and tasked with enforcing safety for the American people, that they would be denied the knowledge of motivation why these terrorists commit the acts they do. I talked to an FBI agent on Friday night when I was giving a speech, and he told me he was there during this purge, and that is one of the three pillars that law enforcement needs to know and be trained in. What is the motivation of perpetrators?
Sure.
The motivation is very clear if you read the Quran, the Hadith, and if you listen to various fatwas that are issued by Muslim religious leaders. And we have, under President Obama, willingly put our hands over our ears, our hands over our eyes, and our hands over our mouths, because we have been, political correctness has enforced that we are not allowed to talk about the true motivation and background behind why we see these attacks occurring. If you go back into the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, you never saw these kind of attacks in the United States. That's because there was a very low Muslim population. Today, that population has exploded to 3.3 million Muslims in America. And no, we have to give the caveat, not all Muslims believe this, just
Right.
like not all Christians believe the same things about the Bible. Not all Muslims believe the same thing about the Quran. But there are fundamentalist Muslims who do believe very strongly in the words of Muhammad, and that's what Donald Trump is talking about. We have to have extreme vetting so we keep people out of this country who are not here to bring about America's best interest, and they're not here to assimilate into the United States.
Congresswoman Michele Bachmann is here on Trending Today USA. We are also live on Conservative Tribune on Facebook Live. If you'd like to comment or ask Congresswoman Michele Bachmann a question, you can do that right here on the Facebook page. Mary Lou writes, "Thank you, Ms. Congresswoman Bachmann, a representative in our government, for clearing this up. Protesters, be careful who you're following. The terrorists are planted here to destroy and conquer." Is Mary Lou correct, or is that a little bit far-fetched, do you think, Congresswoman?
Conquering is the goal. It's very clear that the goal, whether it's through a process known as civilization jihad or whether it is through violent jihadist activity, both are designed with the same goal, and that is to conquer the land for Islam. This is the admonition that is given to Muslims. They are to conquer for Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And just here in Minnesota this last week, our governor had a conference or a press conference where he showed a picture of a woman in Islamic headdress, and he was announcing that now in Minnesota schools, they're going to be teaching Islam. Now, there were Supreme Court cases that wouldn't even allow Christian kids voluntarily to pray in American schools. And now in Minnesota, our classrooms are going to be filled with teaching Islam. This is a part of advancing the movement of Islam all across the United States. People would be shocked to realize how far along this is. There's an effort now to establish Ramadan as a part of school curriculum in schools all across the United States, and that's again another Muslim holiday. But this is a violation of the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution, because it is government establishing the teaching of religion in a public school. They discriminated against Christianity, but now they are full square advancing the teaching of Islam.
Right.
In fact, you can look in the new national curriculum, Common Core, and a part of Common Core was to eradicate the teaching of Christianity from schools, but to put in the teaching of Islam in public schools.
Wow. All right, Congresswoman Michele Bachmann here in Training Today USA. Also live on Facebook on Conservative Tribune. And let's see, Greg writes, I love this lady. Dana writes this, and this is interesting. I want to get your take on this, Congresswoman Bachmann. I'm tired of all the hate. I believe that something is needed, but the execution was really bad. It needed to be better planned and to include the countries that have actually done us harm. How would you respond to that, Congresswoman Bachmann?
Well, if she's saying the execution of what Donald Trump is proposing is really bad.
The way it happened quickly and they didn't know what to do at airports and it caused a bunch of problems, okay?
No, not at all. Donald Trump did exactly as he was supposed to do. Remember, the response is from CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. This is a Muslim Brotherhood front group that sees that their effort to have nonstop continual migration into the United States from these terror countries is now being interrupted, and they're screaming about that. The 7 countries that were designated were countries that are terror-induced countries. One of those is Somalia. I live in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. We recently had an attack in one of our malls where a Somali refugee put on his security guard uniform, took in a knife, and slashed 10 people in this mall. The only way he was stopped is because there was a concealed carry instructor who was in the mall, and he took down this refugee. Otherwise, other people would have been slashed and killed. Again, we need to understand the motivation. Why do migrants, why do refugees do these acts that we've never seen before in the United States? It's because they are following a belief system that they believe will get them to heaven, and that they believe is a response to what the Prophet Muhammad calls them to do. People like that will have no interest in assimilating into American law and American ways. We need to know that. We need to protect our people, and we need to think about the victims of terrorism here in the United States and how we can bring our nation back into a nation of laws and a nation that observes those norms.
Hey, let me ask you something. Michele Bachmann is here on Trending Today USA, live on Conservative Tribune here on Facebook. Marcia writes this. I want to get your take. We have homeless people, homeless veterans who need our help before we start allowing all of these refugees to take our tax dollars and our country away from us. It's pathetic. And we're tired of stupid rhetoric. We're tired of absurd solutions to terrorism in our country's schools. Common Core needs to go too. Your take.
Yeah, exactly. The American people have suffered for a long time under this program because refugees are very expensive. And remember, under the refugee program that was begun in the late 1940s through the UN, the proposal meant that refugees would be kept in their particular region of the world. It made the most sense. You would provide safe zones for them. No one wants to see anyone suffer anywhere in the world, but we should be providing safe areas for people until they can return back to their homeland. This effort to bring people into Western Europe and bringing people into the United States of America is a proven abject failure. It doesn't work for the American people. That should be our first priority.
I agree.
What works for America?
And the other thing, Chuck Schumer's out there speaking as if every person around the world has constitutional rights in America. If you do, then let's just get rid of the borders and have 5 billion people move into America. Everybody wants to come here.
Well, that's exactly what will happen. This is an extremely expensive proposition. If you live in a country where you're living on $1 or $2 a day, and you find out that overnight, just with a plane ticket that you don't buy, somebody buys for you, you can come to the United States, and your family can be making between $40,000 and $50,000 a year through cash and in-kind government programs. Who wouldn't take that deal?
And that to
And you
those
can-
guys,
and you
that's
stay on those
like $1 million, isn't it? I mean, that's just unheard of money.
It's like, it's money that they've never heard of. Well, here's an example. Last week in Switzerland, migrants that came in from impoverished African countries, they're economic migrants basically. They came in, claimed refugee status, that they had to flee their country of Eritrea. Well, they went on to the welfare system in Switzerland, and they went on vacation back to the country that they were supposedly fleeing because they have so much money. That happened here in Minnesota, too, where our Somali refugees who claimed they were fleeing persecution in Somalia, they go back on vacation to Somalia, but they also took their student loan money and used that to finance joining ISIS, to fight in ISIS. We're just stupid. We've lost our minds. And now Donald Trump is regaining some common sense and regaining control of America's borders.
All right, we're running short of time. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann is here on Trending Today USA. We are live on CTTV, on Conservative Tribune, here on Facebook. Cherie writes, I am absolutely floored about hearing a lot of this. I'm hearing this for the first time, but it's sure making more and more sense now. Why isn't this being told throughout this country? We need to inform Americans. Congresswoman, you've been trying that for a long time, haven't you?
Rusty, what I would say is your listeners are so wise to listen to you, the Conservative Tribune, Western journalism. Those are reliable sources for information where people can find out the truth of what's going on in our country. That's what people need to listen to. Find good, authoritative areas for news distribution and stay there.
Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, to wrap things up here, like I said, we're almost out of time. What would you like to say to these people that are protesting? It's not just CARE people, it's people in the streets who honestly feel that we're trying to keep other religions down. What do you want them to know?
Well, to CARE, I would say you are a front group for a foreign terrorist organization, and now you're found out. We don't want you, and we don't want what you're doing. And I would say to those who are joining them, who tend to be more on the radical left, why don't you take refugees directly into your home? I think that would be a good idea. You want to have open borders, and you want someone to support them, so why not you? You take these migrants into your home. You live with them literally in your home, and you pay the freight for them. And find out what your life will be once you welcome them into your home.
And these
because
are not
what
people
has been excluded from this country are Christian refugees. Barack Obama intentionally discriminated against Christian refugees. And in the Middle East, the crime has been Muslim crime to eradicate a genocide of Christians in the Middle East. The Jews are gone.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to eradicate Christians. And Barack Obama refused to allow virtually all Christian refugees into the United States.
All right, Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, thank you so much. I didn't plan on having you on, but you're always so informative. It's so great to have you. Your Facebook page is where?
It is Michele Bachmann, Michele with one L, Bachmann with two N's, and Twitter as well. So please join me. We have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Michele Bachmann, thank you so much. Coming up next half hour.